everyone, just to kind of save for convenience. I'm Master Sergeant Parson, the Sergeant at Arms, and this is our July general membership meeting. I will ask that everyone stay muted. If you have questions, please type them in the chat. We're going to have a briefing from Chief Master Sergeant Moore today, so he'll take questions at the end of his briefing, so go ahead and start those early and during his presentation, and then we'll have our separate crosstalk session towards the end of it. So we'll be able to split those two question sessions. Please, we ask that you also change your name on here to your rank and name for understanding who we are, networking, things of that nature. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our VP who's filling in for our president, Sergeant Walker. Over to you, sir.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Master Sergeant Walker. Thanks for calling in for our July general membership meeting. Sounds like there may be a few that are not muted. I hear a little feedback. If you haven't muted, please mute. But yes, thank you for calling in. Today we have some great information for you guys. Your council and our committees, we're working hard to provide value to this organization, and we can see some great strides that we're making. With that, we will transition over to Master Sergeant Canella, who will give you an update on our current Treasury report.
All right, now I figured out the mute button. So currently we have $3,346 in our account. And I've got a lot of emails about the coins. And I've inquired about them a couple of times. I'm still waiting to hear back when they're going to come in. But as soon as they come in, I'll shoot an email out to everybody and let them know they're on the way. So that's all I got for the finance piece.
Roger that, Sergeant Canella. Can you give us a quick update on membership?
Yeah, I think just this month we had about 10 new people. That brings us up to 86% or 86 people compared to the 50 that when we started. So we've had a 72% increase since the new committee took over. Yeah. You know what?
All right, thank you, Sergeant Canella. As far as old business goes, this previous month in June, we had two separate meetings. One was with the IG team, Mr. Gallagher and his team, and we also had Senior Master Sergeant Hart, Production Superintendent for the 367th, give a mentorship brief. That's been placed on our YouTube page, and I believe our social media team is also working on getting that onto Facebook. So if you missed it, feel free to check it out. And with that, Chief Moore, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Copy that. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm out in the middle of Wyoming right now, so just want to make sure comms are good. Thumbs up. We're good? Cool.
Good, sir.
Cool. Thank you. So first off, I just want to extend my thanks to the top three for giving me this this platform to speak on a topic that's obviously very important to all of us that are trying to continue to progress through the ranks, and just have kind of at least my perspective, give my perspective on some things that could possibly help you advance to the next rank. And I know this one specifically deals with the upcoming Senior Master Sergeant, but really the information I'm going to give you is fairly general in nature and can be applied to the Master Sergeant Board as well as seniors going on to Chief as well. So but again, just in case I forget to mention, I want to make sure that I applaud the top three and what they've done, and that includes the current regime and the regime previous, and then obviously the original regime that stood up the top three. It was definitely a missing piece that AFRS we just didn't have it, and basically we relied on people to go out to their host installations and become members there, which in theory is a good thing. And obviously still not, people aren't being prevented from doing that now, but in our environment, obviously not everyone is stationed on an installation. So it's just not always easy to reach out to those host installations and network. So again, the top three, what you're doing now, and what was started a few years ago is phenomenal. It was something missing as I came up through the ranks. And again, I just want to make sure I express my thanks and gratitude that you guys put this together, and you're doing a phenomenal job in running it. So in terms of our actual topic today, now I wanted to get some clarification. So me and Sergeant Walker spoke a couple of days ago, and I just wanted to make sure I was hitting the right areas that he wanted me to focus on, because obviously AFPC has already put together a very good brief on the board process. So I didn't feel like there was a need to actually delve too much into that. It's on my purse if you guys want to look into that and see how the actual board process works. And Sergeant Walker explained to me that he wants me to more focus on just preparing for the board, which is good because they're two different things. First off, obviously preparing for the board, what does that mean? Well, there's not a whole lot you can do to prepare for the board, because the majority of the stuff is already set in stone. We can't go back and rewrite EPRs. We can't go back and rewrite medals to make them sound better. At this point, it is what it is. But there are still some things we can do. And so that's kind of what I want to highlight today. First off, I just want to make sure everyone is aware of some significant dates that you should all be tracking. And this one here is specifically going to be for the Senior Master Sergeant Board. So the first date being the accountability date. This is the date that locks you in where you're at, what you're doing. So basically the squadron or group that you're assigned to, the duty position that you're doing, that is what your EPR is going to read. Your top EPR is going to close out at that location. Your duty title will be that duty title. And it's important to know that date because it's about 120 days prior to the SCOD. So whatever date that falls on, I believe for Master Sergeant, it's around the beginning of May. I want to say May 3rd or 4th typically. Where you belonged on that day is where your EPR will close out. And believe it or not, there's still confusion out there. Ever since we've gone to the static closeout dates, there's still a lot of confusion out there on who's writing my EPR, if I'm PCSing during that timeline. So just know that understanding that piece is very important, because obviously I'm hoping you're all working on your EPRs right now and getting them fine-tuned with your supervisors and getting them ready to submit to squadron leadership and eventually up to group and obviously possibly AFRS if you're in the stratification conversation. So just knowing that piece there is very important. The next date being the SCOD, the static closeout date, 30 September. So anything that you want to get captured has to close out or happen 30 September or earlier throughout the calendar year on this year's EPR. And then the next significant date is going to be the file freeze date. The file freeze date is the date that AFPC locks your file. So basically whatever MIL PDS is reading, so whatever decorations are on file that closed out 30 September or earlier, EPRs, anything education records, anything like that, AFPC is going to lock your record at that point. And it's typically approximately 2 weeks prior to the board convening. And Senior Master Sergeant boards usually convene the last week of January. So expect mid-January, your record needs to reflect what you want the board to see, meaning decorations need to be updated, assuming they closed out prior to 30 September or earlier. EPR needs to be signed, obviously routed and uploaded into both Prada, and your SERP needs to be updated as well. For the most part, whatever reflects on your SERP is going to then transfer over to your DVR, with the exception of there's still some masked things. So Senior NCO Academy is masked because it's not a factor. Senior NCO Academy is not a requirement to be a Senior Master Sergeant. It's a requirement to be a Chief Master Sergeant. So there's no reason in showing it. Your education, whatever education you have completed, that you want to reflect on your DVR, you need to make sure that is updated, assuming, again, it was completed in time or on time, being 30 September or earlier. And the significant thing about education is it will only allow you to show 3 levels of education, or not even levels, basically three completed educations. So if you have more than that, you need to choose which ones you want the board to see. Okay. And I'll use myself for an example. When I went from senior to chief for my chief board, I have a master's degree, I have a bachelor's degree, and then some associates, CCAFs. Well, it's obvious that I have my CCAF or an associate's degree because that's a requirement to become a senior master sergeant. So I chose to not have my CCAF show up on it, and instead had my professional manager certificate show up on it. Little things like that, I don't know if it's going to be a deal breaker, but anything you can do, especially because the competition is so incredibly strong when it starts to get up to senior and chief, that anything that you can do to set yourself apart from your peers is a good thing. So obviously, going from senior to chief, everybody already has an associate's degree, so there's no reason in using that line up showing that you have an associate's degree. It's assumed you made senior master. They know that. So I chose to not show my associate's degree and instead show my professional manager certificate on my education record. So it went master's degree, bachelor's degree, and then it went professional manager certificate. And that's a request that you can make through a MyPERS incident request. So if you have a similar situation to that, just make sure that you request that prior to the file freeze date and hang on to that. Well, the incident request will always be in MyPERS, but just in case for some reason they fail to update it like you requested, and possibly you don't make it, you have a leg to stand on. I'm not going to say it's going to be granted, but you have a leg to stand on to petition or to request for a supplemental consideration because your record did not meet the way you requested it to be met. So, and it does say in the AFI that you can select the education records that you want to show. Up to 3. So basically, those are really the only things that you can control, or those dates that are significant right now that you still have some control over. Obviously, accountability date has passed. Your SCOD is fast approaching, and like I said, you're working on your EPRs now. If you are in the process of a PCS and you're going to PCS prior to then, make sure that the closeout date is 30 September or earlier, or it will be a non-factor. And then again, once we get close to the file freeze date, make sure that everything that was submitted prior to 30 September is accurately reflected on your DVR, and that can be found in the virtual MPF. So, so that's basically on your information side of the house, the record itself. Other than a medal, for some of you that may be PCSing, everybody, like I said, has an EPR coming due that's competing for senior. So there's still one actual document that we can use and you can give yourself an advantage on against your peers, and that being the EPR and how you capture what you accomplished this last year. And I think this is an amazing opportunity to sort of transform the way we write in AFRS and this specific time right now. And the reason I say that is because I look at a lot of EPRs and they all look the same pretty much. AFRS is, and it's kind of to be expected, I guess. We all basically do the same job, or it's very similar in nature. But we don't do a very good job of distinguishing ourselves from our peers. And this year, I think, creates a great opportunity because we all know FY awards are kind of, it sounds like they're turned off. I know there's been some rumor maybe there's going to be FY awards again, but I think the general consensus is there's not going to be any FY awards. They're going to stick with what they announced back in March. So, and Master Sergeant EPRs always used to work out real good because they closed out at the end of the FY. So Master Sergeants could EPRs were always timed perfectly for FY awards. Well, this year with at least most of the FY awards, it sounds like going away, maybe some squadron level stuff still being around. You're gonna have to get more creative on what you include in your EPRs. And I like this because to me, Master Sergeant EPRs in recruiting read very similar to Staff Sergeant EPRs in recruiting. Sorry about that, I had a call coming in. They read very, very similar to Staff Sergeant EPRs in recruiting. And I think that we need to sort of transition away from that. And some ways to do that are pretty simple, really. But it's going to take some sort of re-education, relearning on how we write. Senior NCO EPRs should be more strategic in nature. I believe our senior NCOs should be more familiar with some of our core strategic documents and how we, as a recruiting service, our mission, how we contribute to those documents. So this isn't rocket science here, but what I want to make sure everybody understands is it's our job as senior NCOs to not only understand it and be able to articulate our role in this mission, and our role in carrying out the national defense strategy or the national security strategy, the Air Force core competencies, the Air Force priorities. In order to do that, we need to know them, and we need to be able to explain them to our subordinates as well. So this gives us that opportunity to look into those documents. How are we satisfying the national defense strategy? The unclassified version of the national defense strategy talks about recruiting. However, how often do we ever reference what we do in our line of work every single day in our EPRs? How often do we reference that back to the national defense strategy? I think we all too often just refer stuff back to the ammo, MEP success, stuff that sounds good in the AFRS world, and it is. It's obviously good stuff, but when you go to a promotion board, there's for senior to or for master to senior, there's one 8R on that board, and the other chief is could be any AFSC, and then you have a colonel that's probably never been in recruiting. So you're only really speaking to a third of your audience when all you talk about is recruiting. If you want to set yourself apart from your peers, well, actually, let me rewind that a little bit. You're not setting yourself apart from your peers if all you're doing is talking about recruiting stuff, because everybody's EPRs, like I said, pretty much look the same. So it's already hard enough to distinguish yourself from an 8R chief. But then you throw in another chief and a colonel that knows nothing about recruiting, and then everything really starts to blend together. But what every chief and every colonel should know is the Air Force priorities, our core competencies, the national defense strategy, our role in it, national security strategy. If you can articulate what we do every day in those terms, which is what we should be doing anyway, you will set yourself apart from your peers because no one else is doing it, I promise. And I'm not saying throw out the playbook when it comes to all the AFRS isms and EPRs. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. Just tweaking a couple bullets here and there can make your EPR look drastically different, make the impact look much more significant and more lasting than what your peers does. Now, I'm not saying go run out and read the National Defense Strategy and pull out keywords just to throw them into your EPR. Boards will recognize that also. It has to be substantive. It has to actually tie back to the mission. They can't be hollow bullets, is what I'm saying. You have to truly tie what you did back to those core documents. If they don't relate, then don't do it. You have to find a way to actually make the action match the result and impact. If you don't, then like I said, the board will see through that. They're smart. But again, I think this is a great opportunity to think a little bit outside the box, to educate yourself on these core documents. We all read them when we go to if you've been to Senior NCO Academy, it's part of the read ahead material for the academy, and oftentimes they're read and then they're shelved. and never looked at again. I think we need to get in the habit of brushing these documents off every once in a while from time to time, EPR time being a great time to do it, and referencing them and making sure, is the stuff in my EPR, how does it relate to these documents? Does it say I'm ready to be a senior master sergeant? And I mean, just go to the enlisted force structure and read out, read the responsibilities, what's expected of a senior master sergeant, and ask, does your EPR read like it says I'm ready to be a senior master sergeant? And if not, then you need to go back to the drawing board and work on, rephrasing some of your bullets to capture the significance of what you're doing, of how you're leading your team, of how you're encouraging creativity and innovation, because again, most or many of your peers aren't doing it. And I think that's one thing that's maybe, the Air Force is really cool. The enlisted corps in the Air Force is really cool because we are very, very proud and dependent on our subculture, as opposed to the other services rely heavily on their culture. Someone in the Marines goes home for Christmas, and the grandma asks them what they do. They say they're a Marine. Someone in the Army goes home, grandma asks them what they do. They say they're a soldier. In the Air Force, we are very job specific. When we go home and grandma or a friend asks what we do, we're a recruiter, right? Which I think is really good for the airmen and NCO ranks. But I think maybe we need to make a transition back to our culture when we get to the senior NCO ranks. And because I think by doing that, we will have a better understanding of the bigger piece, how we fit into this this massive puzzle of national defense and the profession of arms. And this year, like I said, I see an opportunity to do that, and I'm excited about it. So I'm ready to open it up for any questions that anybody from the field might have, and then I'll get some closing remarks as well.
Chief, where would we find, where's a good reference for all those core documents that you're talking about? And can you be more specific on which ones besides the national security strategy?
Sure. So if you go to af.mil, up top in the heading section, there's one of the drop downs has strategic documents. So it's got everything from the NDA, so the National Defense Authorization, which is thousands of pages long, down to ATC priorities, Air Force priorities, Air Force core competencies, Air Force, the National Defense Strategy, National Security Strategy, and also keep in mind this: we have a new incoming Chief of Staff and a new Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force coming in this summer. Know what's important to them. Okay, Chief Bass has already given, she's already done a couple, or at least I know one sort of a virtual town hall since it was announced, and it was pretty evident from that town hall that readiness is something that's important to her, restoring readiness. So, and General Brown, he hasn't given any speeches yet or any town halls yet since it's been since he's been confirmed. But read his bio. People are shaped by, people's perspective is shaped by where they come from, what they've done, what their experiences are. And you can get some good insight into sort of, predicting what's important to our up and coming senior leaders just by knowing who they are and where they come from. I know General Brown has an extensive history in the Pacific. So you kind of have to peel the onion back until he comes out and says what his priorities are. But anyone with an extensive history in the Pacific is, the Euro-Pacific relations are very important. Building allies in that region is very important. So you might have to get a little bit creative and sort of do some assuming, use some logic and just assume, okay, well, if his background is this, and this, and he's been stationed here and here, by virtue of that, I know these are going to be priorities to him. Therefore, they need to be priorities to me. And I need to make sure that I convey those priorities to my team. So I would definitely just, Google those documents, Google their bios, find them, read them, know them, become familiar with them, because the board charge, which is what every board is read right before they start grading packages, comes directly from the Chief Staff of the Air Force. So know that what's important to the Chief Staff of the Air Force is going to be in that charge. And obviously the closer your EPR, again, we only have control over this top one right now. Moving forward, hopefully you can take this and continue to build on and make your record stronger and stronger year to year. But this year, the more that you can articulate in your EPR that you're doing something that is important to our chief, there's a good word, there's going to be, or a good, a likelihood, I should say, that there's going to be a correlation between what's in your EPR and what's in that board charge. And that's a pretty easy, that makes it easy for a board member scoring it when they're seeing the exact same stuff in your EPR that was just read to them in the board charge. And all these board charges are basically, they don't change a lot year to year. In fact, I've got the board charge here from last year. And I mean, I can just kind of read this. So again, this is something that is read to the board right before they start grading packages. So, and I'm saying pull out keywords, make sure you use them effectively. Don't make hollow bullets. But, you know, part of the charge is, you know, what they're looking for is someone who fosters a culture that encourages and rewards creativity, innovation, risk-taking, critical thinking. The effectiveness and efficiency of the Air Force will continue to demand excellent executive management skills. Just the board charge is about 5 pages long. I just read one sentence. In that one sentence alone, there's a lot of words in there that should be in your EPR, that you should be highlighting how you're innovative, how you take risks, how you use critical thinking. Because again, this is going to be read to them, and then they're going to start scoring packages. If right after they read this, they see yours and the words are very similar, and again, you can articulate how you actually did it, that's a good thing. Versus stuff like ammo, RAL, MEPS, again, all good stuff. Standard of excellence is another good example. Standard of excellence is great. It's hard to get. I know that because I've been in this business for a long time. Well, 16 years, so a pretty long time. But to the rest of the Air Force, standard of excellence isn't anything, doesn't mean anything to anybody. To the rest of the Air Force, excellence should be the standard, right? I mean, it's one of our core values. So saying you won the standard of excellence basically just says you did what you were supposed to do, probably. Again, I know it's more than that because I'm in this business, but does the rest of the Air Force know that? Don't assume they do. So we just have to be very careful. Know your audience. Know who's going to be looking at these documents, these EPRs. You're going to have one 8R for techs going to master, one 8R for master going to senior, and no 8Rs on the board for senior going to chief. So all that cute language that we use that's recruiting related won't mean anything when you're going from senior to chief. It needs to read more like big Air Force language.
Chief, what are some, you mentioned taking risks. What can you share any examples of risks that you've seen taken by Master Sergeants and AFRS over the last year or two? Or would you share some that you'd like to see flight chiefs take, and in what area? Because sometimes, you know, we are very checklist oriented. We want to make sure that we're not missing anything and that everything is on a good trajectory the way that maybe it's always been. So how do you balance that, or what are some ideas that you have for risk taking?
Sure. So, I mean, I think right now is a great opportunity for risk taking because we are in an environment that we've never been in before. However, I'm going to caveat that with there's risks that you can take and should take, and then there's risks that are above your level and the pro soup or the commander need to be brought into it. And obviously, we don't take any risk that breaks the law. But you know, I think just encouraging your people to be innovative and innovating your own processes. I think there's lots of ways to take on risk. waiving certain requirements that can be waived at your level. Not the session requirements, but I mean maybe office visit type requirements, the amount of school visits, the amount of interaction that's supposed to be done between an applicant and a recruiter. We're in different times now. Are we really going to make a face-to-face mandatory right now? Probably not, because we're gonna accept a risk and say the risk is not worth the reward right now. We're not going to. I'm not going to make my recruiter, get in a gov and drive 200 miles across Wyoming right now, just to put eyes on an applicant or a defer. There's new, more innovative ways that we can get the same thing done. It just involves a little bit of risk, and we're doing that right now with our processing. We're doing, a lot of people are doing the MEPS briefs, via Zoom. There's a lot of people joining the Air Force now that have never even met their recruiter face to face. Something that would never have been thought of in the past. That would have, unless you're in the HP world. But now we're leveraging all these new emerging technologies, and I think that's an acceptable level of risk because we've proven it works. But again, I just want to emphasize, certain risks rest at certain levels, and don't make a squadron or group level risk assessment, because at the end of the day, those types of risks rest at the commanders. The names on their mailbox, or their names on the mailbox. So just make sure you don't overstep your bounds there. And also, I also encourage you, when you do take on those risks, make sure you inform your supervision, your leadership. Don't do it in a vacuum.
Thanks, Chief. Another question we had is, there's many ways to write an EPR. What are some of the thoughts and principles you use when it comes to determining which EPRs go on the back of your EPR? Which bullets go on the back of your EPR? Okay.
So, I mean, the most significant bullets should go on the back. The awards that were won at the highest level typically are going to go on the back. Mentorship type bullets, internal and external mentorship are often bullets that are overlooked, and especially on recruiting EPRs, I've found they're usually buried on the front. However, senior NCO responsibility, our core responsibility is to lead teams, and if you're not showing how you internally and externally lead people, then you're missing out on an opportunity, because that's, boards want to see that. They don't want to see MEP success stuff on the back of a senior NCO EPR. They want, how are you effectively leading teams? How are you mentoring subordinates? So just make sure that those things aren't forgotten. Going back to this, and this comes straight from the board president, because typically after every board, they'll send out an email just kind of highlighting what they noticed, what they found, just some observations, and some things that they've always pointed out, and it's almost consistent every year. Don't bury awards, put awards up front. And I know it seems weird. It's not how we're taught to write. Typically the award is the result, so it goes towards the end, certainly not in the middle. But they don't have a lot of time on these records. So what I say is, people naturally read left to right. That's how we're taught to read. Don't give the board an opportunity to miss something significant. If it's significant, put it up front. Get their attention. And again, that comes straight from feedback from the boards. So put awards up front. When there's not awards, because not every bullet is going to have an award, make sure you put the echelon of impact, that whatever change or fix, whatever you did, whatever you helped accomplish, what echelon did it affect? Unless it's the echelon that you're currently working at. So if you're working at the squadron and something you did was at the squadron, then there's probably no reason in putting it. But don't assume if you did something spectacular, did something great, and it was for AETC or for AFRS, don't assume that that's going to they're just going to assume that that's where the change was made. They're going to default, if you don't say it, they're going to default to you made that change at your level, at your squadron level, or at your flight level. So I think it's important to show the echelon that the change was made at, or the impact was felt at, because obviously that's a broader audience, a bigger impact across more people, more dollars. So it just shows a more significant impact was made. But it also gives an opportunity to, echelons are typically capitalized. So if you say, you know, AETC or HAF, AFRS, it's capitalized. Well, again, you want bullets to grab people's attention. You don't want them to get tired of reading your EPR and move on to the next one. Anything you can do to make things stick out, capitalizations, numbers, things like that naturally grab people's attention. So I would say when you don't have an award up front, make sure the echelon, the level of the impact that's being made is identified up front.
If anyone has any other questions, please type them in the chat. Those are all the questions we've received so far, Chief. I appreciate all the points you made. I mean, I'm thinking of my EPRs as well, and I've had some where it's for AFRS, it's had command CMD lowercase, so I could definitely see how that small of a word could hide in a bullet.
Yeah, it's little things like that, attention to detail. You know, and you never know. Just one little thing like that could give you the edge. I mean, a half point on a board scores 7.5 points on your overall score. So that was the difference between me making senior master sergeant and me missing it. I mean, I made senior master sergeant by 6 points when I made it. So I don't know what little thing it was that got me that extra half point on one person's board score. You'll never know that. But little things like that and being consistent throughout the EPR can a lot of times get you that half point. Any other questions?
No, Chief, that's all we're seeing in the chat right now. I'll turn it back over to the Vice President or the next person on the agenda. Thank you.
Well,
Chief wanted to give closing remarks.
Yeah, I just want to say, again, I just want to thank everybody for the opportunity to invite me on here and share my advice and my perspective. And again, this is not it's not an absolute. You may hold different opinions, and obviously that's fine. It's at the end of the day, it's your career, and you need to do what's best for you. And if you think there's maybe I'm off a little bit on some things, I won't take any offense to you taking control of your career and going a little bit different direction when it comes to framing your bullets for your EPR. These are just some things that I noticed, and regardless of whether or not you decide to take some of my advice, especially when it comes to having a better fundamental understanding of what we do and why we do it and how it ties into the bigger picture, whether or not you decide to take that and make your EPR translate into those terms, maybe it worries you that you're afraid you're going to confuse a board by using stuff that's found in these strategic core documents. I don't think you will. But even if you don't use that stuff, I still challenge you to dust off these documents and read them. They're actually pretty interesting, and I think being able to better understand these and to better explain the why, because those documents hold the why we do this. It's, if you ask a recruiter why we do this and their response or your response is to make goal, then your why is wrong. Okay, your why is wrong. It's so much bigger than making goal. Obviously, we want to make goal. There's no doubt about that. But there's more to it than that. I wish it was that easy, but it's not. And I think the more you educate yourself and your team on these documents, the more I think the job will be more rewarding for you, honestly. So that's that's all I have. Those are my closing remarks. And again, I appreciate everybody's time. And if you have any questions, obviously I'm on Global. Feel free to reach out to me. I have a lot of products. I've done strategic writing classes. I'm happy to share all that stuff. So if anybody would like it, please feel free to reach out.
Hey, Chief, real quick before you go, there was a couple questions that just came in. One of them was, what advice do you have for someone who has sufficient time and grade as a Master Sergeant, but their board score isn't moving?
Hasn't moved?
Correct, is not moving.
Okay. Well, again, I would say if it hasn't moved, is sort of, your board score can remain the same every year, or it can go up one year. The thing is, boards are different every year. So what's important to a board one year may not be important to a board the next year. Don't worry about so much if your board score is going up and down. Look at it in relation to your standing amongst non-selects. What you want is your standing amongst non-selects to be going up. Okay, so if you're 80 one year, then you need to shoot, and they're selecting, let's just say 20 a year. You're going to assume about half that 80 are probably going to self-eliminate. They're going to get out every year. Okay, so now you're down to 40 that you're competing against. Well, they're selecting 20 a year. You're still kind of on the outside looking in. But what you want to do is you want to make sure, are you moving in the right direction? If you're 80 amongst non-selects one year, the next year, are you 30 or are you 80 again? If you're 80 again, that's what's important, not the board score going up and down, because board scores vary year to year. Some years a 360 will make it, and some years you need a 412 and a half to make it. So don't overly focus on the score itself. Focus, are you moving in the right direction? Now, if you're not moving in the right direction or you're stagnant, then it's probably the content of the EPR. You need to look at it. Does your EPR articulate that you're ready to be a senior master sergeant if you're currently a master sergeant? Because it probably doesn't. If you're staying stagnant or moving backwards, then it's probably reading like a tech sergeant EPR or a master sergeant EPR, signifying you're good where you're at. And that's why I think getting into these core documents is so critical, because if you can start making your EPR read like our core documents read and tie our mission set and relate it back to these core documents, it's going to read much differently than what your EPRs do now. So I think there's an opportunity there too. And it's not that you're not doing it now. I'm sure everybody is, but they're not making it read like they are.
Okay, thank you, Chief. The last question that's on here is, how can an enlisted accessions Master Sergeant show a greater scope of responsibility?
It's tough, but it's possible. So again, senior NCOs, what do we expect them to do? Lead teams. Is the opportunity going to readily be there for a tier 1 recruiter to lead teams? Probably not. It's not going to be readily, meaning it's not going to be served to you on a platter, and it's not going to be part of your core duties. You're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to reach out to. You're going to have to find other ways, basically. There's if you're next to a host, if you have a host installation next to you, it's a little easier because you can network there and find opportunities to lead there. If that's not an opportunity that's really feasible, then it gets a little bit more challenging. There's professional organizations such as this one here that you can get involved with. Membership's great. Officer, to be an office holder is obviously better. But that's not just going to happen overnight. You're not just going to decide you want to be, the president of a top 3 and probably get elected right away. You typically have to build a reputation that shows and signifies that you're ready. And then even once you get that position, it's what you do with it. And that's what I think is so phenomenal about the top 3 regimes that we've had the last 3 years, or I want to say, yeah, probably 3+ years now. Stuff's actually been done with it, and it continues to build and it continues to improve. Membership is increasing. You can't expect the first regime to that started this for it to be a finally oiled machine and it's ready to go. No, it's been a process, but they got started. They did a lot of the legwork. and ever since then it's been built upon. And I commend everybody that's been a part of it, members and office holders that have been a part of this and made it better. But again, it's capturing it, what you did, how you made it better, how many people it affected, and the impact that was made. So it is challenging. I don't want to say, that it's not, because it truly is, but it can happen. Get after it. It's tough, but it can be done.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief. And again, on behalf of the top three, we want to thank you for taking the time out to go over all these with us, all those points that you made.
Cool. Thank you. And I think I'll be on here later this month. Sergeant Hernandez and myself are putting together an opportunity to discuss a topic that I'm very passionate about, and that's the art of motivation and how we motivate our team members. So there should be Sergeant Hernandez just waiting on a slide for me, and I'm sorry I've been busy, but I'll get it to you here hopefully soon, and we'll get that out to the field, and we'll be back on, I believe, on the 23rd of this month.
Sounds great, Chief. Thank you.
Cool. If you guys have any other questions, I'm gonna bug out. I got some driving ahead of me, so I'm gonna head home.
All right. Drive safe, Chief.
Copy that. Thanks, everybody.
All right. With that, we're going to transition into the committee status reports. One thing to note is there is going to be a fifth committee that we are adding. We're total force recruiting, and we're bringing the reserves into this as well. We have 2 reserve master sergeants who are going to serve on the reserve committee. They unfortunately weren't able to make this meeting. It was kind of short notice, but we're going to go through the other 4 committees and have them kind of give a status report. And then we'll go into crosstalk after that and finish off with President's remarks from Sergeant Walker. So with that, Sergeant Dodd, if you could.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Master Sergeant Dodd with the Social Media Committee. I think one of the biggest things that we'll be pushing for the next coming week or so is an Instagram page. So we're going to try to link our YouTube account with our Facebook account and just link the 3 platforms together. Because I know there's a lot of people out there who don't have Facebook, and I've been getting the question of why don't we have Instagram? So we're going to put something like that together. And really, we're just trying to reach as many people as we can and to get the information out there. And with that being said, though, I would ask if you all have specific content or anything that you want to see on our social media platforms, please don't be afraid to bring the ideas forward, and we'll work it to try to get it all pushed out there for you all. That's all I have.
Okay, Sergeant Manuel. Thank you, Sergeant Dodd. Sergeant Manuel, you want to get us up to speed on the Ways and Means Committee?
Sergeant Hernandez. Biggest thing, like Chief just top 3 talking, potentially could be monthly. This one will.
Sergeant Hernandez, I hate to jump in here, but your connection is very choppy.
Be about priority.
I can jump on.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was going to ask you for.
Yeah, so this month for Ways and Means, we've coordinated, Sergeant Hernandez coordinated with Chief Moore. And so there's a TED Talk that you can watch in preparation for that. Look for an email and advertising on that on social media as well. But that's going to be later this month in July. And then we also want to solicit feedback. So if you have ideas for events that you would like to see, I mean, we've done a 5K run, we've done the Murph. For Ways and Means, it can be a lot of different things and a lot of different types of events that we could do. We're surfing around the idea of a book club, and if there would be any interest in discussing that kind of on Facebook, week to week with things that stick out to us in recruiting service, whether you're a recruiter or in a support role or even as a first sergeant, if we're all kind of reading a book together, and we're finding things that apply to us, we can share that with each other. So if that's something that you'd like to see, well, we're definitely open to the feedback for that. So you could post that to Facebook if we kind of solicit a question, or you can email us directly, the president or the vice president, or Sergeant Parson as well. And we can look to incorporate some of those events as we plan the rest the months moving forward. So that's what we have for Ways and Means.
Awesome. Thank you for jumping in. Sorry, Sergeant Hernandez, it was a bad connection. Next up, we have the Mentorship Committee. Sergeant Garza or Sergeant Brockett. I'm not sure which one of you is wanting to jump in on that one.
I got it. So first off, I want to say thank you for everybody that applied to be a Schoolhouse Mentor. The program is fully up and running. We really appreciated everyone's application to be a mentor. I understand we couldn't pick everybody. However, there's going to be plenty of opportunities going forward in the next FY, not only for the schoolhouse, but we're also going to be rolling with the Flight Chief Schoolhouse to providing more opportunities. The program allowed for about 50 different mentor opportunity slots across AFRS for people to step up and take charge. So we really do appreciate everyone reaching out and supporting that effort. And I know Sergeant Perry's on here, as well as Sergeant Brockett, and pretty much we're working the Chief Daigle situation right now too as well. But that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you, Sergeant Garza. Appreciate that. Awards Committee, Sergeant Holobar. Sir, if you could give us an update on what you got.
Hey guys, I'm Master Sergeant Holobar. I'm with Master Sergeant Prouty, who's not here right now, but we are your awards committee. We should be sending out an email probably today, if not by tomorrow, with our award templates for our Rising Star Individual Award and the Chief Master Sergeant Esposito Team Award for the Squadron. We'll have the guidance on there. We're also looking for board members. For all of those, you need to be a good standing top 3 member. So just make sure you have that worked out before you volunteer. If you guys have any questions about that, feel free to reach out. That's all I got.
Great. Thank you very much. Let me grab you the names. I know Master Sergeant Travis Williams is one for the Reserve Committee, and the other is Master Sergeant Casey. I'm sorry, Master Sergeant George, Casey George. And those will be our Reserve Committee. Obviously, we want to start getting reserves and guard, but being that we actually do have a reserve group, we wanted to first target them before attacking anything further. I'm looking in the chat and I'm not seeing any additional questions for a crosstalk, so we'll give it about a minute or two, see if y'all have anything that you want to discuss, anything impacting recruiting service, or regardless of what it is. As senior NCOs, we want to provide this platform to kind of have that discussion, but we also don't want to waste your time, so we won't sit for too long if we don't get any questions. Okay, here's one. Social media feedback with rollout of IG. I think top 3 live sessions, flight chief to flight chief, senior NCO to NCO, etc. would be cool. Also, so many recruiters utilize IG and Instagram and Facebook, and to recognize their efforts with creativity, followers, and reach would go a long way. There isn't any recognition for this upward lead generating activity trend beyond what's stated on the 1206 kudos bullet. Maybe an award of sorts could be created. On my page, I recognize the top 9 posts of the week, and it's appreciated by recruiters. From a higher level, I think that would be awesome. That's great feedback. Sergeant Dodd, did you want to talk on that? Answer anything?
Having some issues here. Yeah, most definitely. That sounds like an awesome idea. The biggest thing would be though is spending a lot more time on the Instagram and trying to follow as many recruiters as I can at that point on there, or have them follow and follow back, and seeing what kind of content they're posting, and just being able to monitor the posts a lot more in terms of figuring out who's going to get awards and different things like that, or recognizing those top posts. But yeah, that's most definitely something that we can do though.
Awesome. We'll take some notes on that. We'll look into the feasibility of how it would work out, and then we'll follow up on that next meeting if that works for you, Master Arzia. Does anyone else have any additional comments, questions, anything to add before we move on to the president's remarks? All right, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Sergeant Walker. Give us your final remarks before we adjourn.
All right, great. All right, so yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that we're really excited about the way that things are headed with our top three. I wanted to make sure that everybody understands that this top three is for you all. It's there for us to network and grow as leaders. We're always trying to find value and add value to this organization. Chief Moore brought a lot to the table today, talking about strategic writing. And I know a lot of us are sitting down and preparing our EPRs and wanting to know how we can provide a good product. Hearing things like the board charge is something I never heard before, wondering really these certain words in our EPRs, do they really matter? Why does it matter, the specific verbiage? And hearing those sorts of things are what's going to help us to grow and to mentor those underneath us is by learning together. We are trying to take this organization to the next level. As Sergeant Parsons said, we are going to add the total force to this, starting with the reserves. Our two senior NCOs that were elected are prior active duty recruiters, so they're senior NCOs that we can lean on, and we're going to be working with the total force. So for us to collaborate now and to learn how one another works is going to be great for us. So I did want to say, if this is our organization, so if you all see something that you think we can improve upon, if you're a part of a top three at your local base and you've seen something that's really effective, please reach out to us. As you just saw, someone suggested something with social media, and Sergeant Dodd right away was trying to think about, how do we get to a yes? How do we do this to satisfy your all's needs? So we love that feedback. Keep that coming. Currently, we have 86 members. We started out a few months ago with 50 paid members. So for us to have 86, this thing is moving, and we love that. Chief KG is our mentor, and we've been getting feedback from him, and he's doing a great job at pushing this to the top. He's emphasizing the importance of this to our senior leaders, and we're getting chiefs and seniors that are paying dues and that they're paid members, and we love that. We need them to set the example to help us, so we want the organization to be promoted in that way, so people will see value in it. And when your pro soup is paying in, or your chief is, it's going to help us. So I did want to put that challenge out there to everybody to, if you're not a member, and you want to know what our organization brings to the table, please reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about it. We have a first sergeant that recently reached out to us, and we're setting up a Zoom to talk to their senior leaders to talk about the top three, because he sees value in it and he wants us to be able to speak on that. But yes, if you're at your organization and you're around master sergeants and above, please encourage them to join the top three. If you're listening to this call and maybe you're not a paid member, please support us. We want to be able to have the resources to take this to the next level and to be able to promote and mentor and that sort of thing. So really encourage you to support us, join the top three. If you have any kind of information, anything that we can do to take this to the next level, we'd love to hear it. With that, that's all I have for this general membership meeting. We hope to see everybody again on our upcoming Mentor of the Month and general meetings, as well as the events that we have coming up.
As a reminder, it's going to be the first Wednesday of every month. So July 5th, 1300 Central Time. We'll make sure that the Zoom information gets sent out well ahead of time. That way everyone has the ID and password, etc. And with that, I move to adjourn the meeting.
I second that.
All right, it's been seconded. It is 13:59 Central Time. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I would like the councils and committees just to stay on real quick. I had an offline talk with one of the committee members and just want to kind of get y'all's input on that if we could. But for everyone else, we appreciate you stopping by, and we'll see you at the next meeting.